John Joseph Pershing was born on a farm near Lesled, Missouri in 1860. He had 5 siblings who survived infancy, while 3 died in infancy. When the American Civil War began, his father supported the Union and was a sutler for the 18th Missouri Volunteer Infantry. Pershing attended a school in Lesled that was reserved for precocious students who were also the children of prominent citizens. Completing high school in 1878, he became a teacher of local black children. While pursuing his teaching career, Pershing also studied at the State Normal School in Kirksville, Missouri, from which he graduated in 1880 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Scientific Didactics. 2 years later, he applied to the United States Military Academy. Pershing was sworn in as a West Point cadet in the fall of 1882. He was selected early for leadership positions, and Pershing also commanded the honor guard that saluted the funeral train of President Ulysses S. Grant as it passed West Point in August 1885. Pershing graduated in the summer of 1886, ranked 30th in the class of 77, and was commissioned a second lieutenant. Pershing reported for active duty on September 30th, 1886, and was assigned to Troop L of the 6th U.S. Cavalry stationed at Fort Bayard in the New Mexico Territory. While serving in the 6th Cavalry, Pershing participated in several Indian campaigns and was cited for bravery or actions against the Apache. During his time at Fort Stanton, Pershing and close friends spent their leisure time hunting and attending Hispanic dances. Between 1887 and 1890, Pershing served with the 6th Cavalry at various postings in California, Arizona, and North Dakota. He also became an expert marksman, and in 1891, was rated 2nd in pistol and 5th in rifle out of all soldiers in the United States Army. In September 1891, he was assigned as the professor of military science and tactics at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, a position he held until 1895. While carrying out his assignment, Pershing attended the university's College of Law, from which he received a bachelor's degree in 1893. On October 20th, 1890, Pershing was promoted to first lieutenant and in 1895 took command of a troop of the 10th Cavalry Regiment, one of the original Buffalo Soldier regiments composed of black soldiers under white officers. In 1897, Pershing was appointed to West Point Tactical Staff as an instructor. Because of his strictness and rigidity, Pershing was unpopular with the cadets, who took to calling him Nigger Jack because of his service with the all-black 10th Cavalry. During the course of his tour at the Academy, this epithet softened to Black Jack. At the start of the Spanish-American War, First Lieutenant Pershing was the regimental quartermaster for the 10th Cavalry. He fought on Kettle and San Juan Hills in Cuba, and was cited for gallantry. Pershing also served with the 10th Cavalry during the siege and surrender of Santiago de Cuba. Pershing was commissioned as a major of the United States Volunteers on August 26, 1898, and assigned as an ordnance officer. In 1899, after suffering from malaria, Pershing was put in charge of the Office of Customs and Insular Affairs, which oversaw occupation forces in territories gained in the Spanish-American War, including Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam. He was honorably discharged from the Volunteers and reverted to his permanent rank of First Lieutenant on May 12, 1899. When the Philippine-American War began, Pershing reported to Manila on August 17, 1899, was assigned to the Department of Mindanao and Jolo, and commanded efforts to suppress the Filipino insurrection. On November 27, 1900, Pershing was appointed Adjutant General and served in this posting until March 1, 1901. On June 30, 1901, Pershing was honorably discharged from the Volunteers and reverted to the rank of Captain in the regular army, to which he had been promoted on February 2, 1901. He served with the 1st Cavalry Regiment in the Philippines. He later was assigned to the 15th Cavalry Regiment, serving as an intelligence officer and participating in actions against the Moros. In June 1903, Pershing was ordered to return to the United States. President Theodore Roosevelt, taken by Pershing's ability, petitioned the Army General Staff to promote Pershing to colonel. At the time, Army officer promotions were based primarily on seniority rather than merit. They would not consider a promotion to lieutenant colonel or even major. Since Roosevelt could not yet promote Pershing, he petitioned the United States Congress to authorize a diplomatic posting, and Pershing was stationed as military attaché in Tokyo, Japan, in 1905. Also in 1905, Pershing married Helen Frances Warren, the daughter of a powerful U.S. Senator, Francis E. Warren. After serving as an observer in the Russo-Japanese War, Attaché General Kuroki Tamameto's Japanese First Army in Manchuria from March to September, Pershing returned to the United States in the fall of 1905. President Roosevelt employed his presidential prerogative and nominated Pershing as a brigadier general, a move which Congress approved. Pershing's promotion, while unusual, was not unprecedented. In 1909, Pershing was assigned once again to the Philippines. While in the Philippines, he served as commander of Fort McKinley, near Manila, and also was the governor of the Moro province. The last of Pershing's 4 children was born in the Philippines, and during this time he became an Episcopalian. In 1913, Pershing was recommended for the Medal of Honor, following his actions at the Battle of Budbagsak. On December 20th, 1913, Pershing received orders to take command of the 8th Brigade at the Presidio in San Francisco, California. With tensions running high on the border between the United States and Mexico, the brigade was deployed to Fort Bliss, Texas, on April 24, 1914. After a year at Fort Bliss, Pershing decided to take his family there. The arrangements were almost complete when on the morning of August 27, 1915, he received a telegram informing him of a fire at the Presidio in San Francisco, California, where smoke inhalation caused the death of his wife, Helen, and his 3 young daughters, Mary, aged 3, Anne, aged 7, and Helen, aged 8. Only his 6-year-old son, Francis Warren, survived. After the funerals at Lakeview Cemetery in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Pershing returned to Fort Bliss with his son and his sister May, and resumed his duties as commanding officer. On March 5, 1916, Pershing led an expedition into Mexico to capture Pancho Villa. Pershing organized and commanded the Mexican Punitive Expedition, a combined armed force of 10,000 men that penetrated 350 miles into Mexico. They routed Villa's revolutionaries but failed to capture him. At the start of the United States' involvement in the First World War, President Woodrow Wilson considered mobilizing an army to join the fight. Wilson briefly interviewed Pershing, and then selected him for the command. He was officially installed in the position on May 10, 1917. As AEF commander, Pershing was responsible for the organization, training, and supply of a combined professional and draft army and National Guard force that eventually grew from 27,000 inexperienced men to 2 armies, and a third forming as the war ended, totaling over 2 million soldiers. Pershing exercised his prerogative carefully, not engaging in politics or disputes over government policy that might distract him from the military mission. Pershing arrived in France in June 1917. In a show of American presence, part of the 16th Infantry Regiment marched through Paris shortly after his arrival. American forces were deployed in France in the autumn of 1917. For the first time in American history, Pershing allowed American soldiers to be under the command of a foreign power. In late June, General Rawlinson commanded the British 4th Army, suggested to Australian Lieutenant General John Monash that American involvement in a set-piece attack alongside the experienced Australians in the upcoming Battle of Hamel would both give the American troops experience and also strengthen the Australian battalions by an additional company each. However, the day before the attack was scheduled to commence, Pershing learnt of the plan and ordered the withdrawal of 6 American companies. In early 1918, entire divisions were beginning to serve on the front lines alongside French troops. In October 1918, Pershing saw the need for a dedicated military police corps, and the first U.S. Army MP school was established at Autun, France. For this, he is considered the founding father of the United States military police. Because of the effects of trench warfare on soldiers' feet in January 1918, Pershing oversaw the creation of an improved combat boot, the 1918 trench boot, which became known as the Pershing boot upon its introduction. American forces first saw serious action during the summer of 1918, contributing 8 large divisions alongside 24 French ones. At the Second Battle of the Marne, along with the British 4th Army's victory at Amiens, the Allied victory at the Second Battle of the Marne marked the turning point of World War I on the Western Front. Pershing sent an unsolicited letter to the Allied Supreme War Council, demanding that the Germans not be given an armistice and that instead the Allies should push on and obtain an unconditional surrender. At the time, this was a breach of political authority. American successes were largely credited to Pershing, and he became the most celebrated American leader of the war. In 1919, in recognition for his distinguished service during World War I, the U.S. Congress authorized the President to promote Pershing to General of the Armies of the United States, the highest rank possible for any member of the United States Armed Forces, which was created especially for him. In 1919, Pershing created the Military Order of the World War as an officers' fraternity for veterans of the First World War. There was a movement to draft Pershing as a candidate for president in 1920. Though Pershing was a Republican, many of his party leaders considered him too closely tied to the policies of the Democratic Party's President Wilson. But the nomination went to Senator Warren G. Harding of Ohio, who went on to win the general election. In 1921, Pershing became Chief of Staff of the United States Army, serving for 3 years. He created the Pershing Map, a proposed national network of military and civilian highways. The Interstate Highway System Institute in 1956 bears considerable resemblance to the Pershing Map. On his 64th birthday, September 13, 1924, Pershing retired from active military service. During the 1930s, Pershing largely retreated to public life, but returned to the public eye with publication of his memoirs, My Experiences in the World War, which were awarded the 1932 Pulitzer Prize for History. On July 15, 1948, Pershing died of coronary artery disease and congested heart failure at Walter Reed General Hospital in Washington, D.C., which was his home after 1944. Following a state funeral, he was buried in Arlington National Cemetery near the grave sites of the soldiers he commanded in Europe. Pershing's son, Colonel Francis Waring Pershing, served in the Second World War as an advisor to the Army Chief of Staff General George C. Marshall. One of Pershing's grandsons, Second Lieutenant Richard Pershing, served in the 502nd Infantry and was killed in action on February 17, 1968, in the Vietnam War.